Oh my God.
And we are live.
We were just talking about Howard Stern. Maybe you can look that up, Andrew. We're just
What?
talking about Howard Stern, and I want to say that like by Sirius Radio or something like that, he was offered some crazy amount of money, but it was also a long time ago. So maybe my imagination is running wild, but I want to say it was like something like $100 million or something, or $50 million, or
Through Sirius or XM radio?
yeah, either one. I don't
Okay.
remember. But I know that he he got off of syndicated network radio, and people were like, "What the hell is that?" And then I'm not sure if it was the same time or if it was before that Adam Carolla jumped ship,
Mm.
and he was like, "Screw you guys, I'm just going to start a podcast." And
Yeah.
everybody's like, "What in the f is a podcast? What are you talking about? What are you doing? What's a podcast?"
And then Stern started kind of talking shit about podcasts after a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
He's like, "That's cute, your little internet radio show." And the next thing you know, it's bigger than anything.
Yeah, they're huge now. I mean, I don't know, I don't know what the radio does, but there's probably some shows on the radio that are probably still pretty big.
So it looks like it was $80 million a year from Sirius.
Nobody's making that podcast, and that's for sure.
Well, we don't like to disclose that info.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Fuck.
crazy. $80 million a year. Wow. That's just like, now my mind's really blown because I was thinking like it was a 10-year, $100 million something or other.
Right.
I know he was that rich.
Ugh. It looks like it might be even 90 now.
Uh-oh. The internet's going wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, Howard Stern was amazing. He had all kinds of he had porn stars on there and stuff. And then, I don't know, every once in a while he'd get serious or something, but then he would rein the show back in by holding his ass cheeks up to the microphone and just letting one rip.
Yeah, so it did look like it was a 12-year deal after all.
Jeez.
But
Well, whatever the case is, he made
a fuck ton of money.
he made an insane amount of money. That was fun to listen to. But I think what Joe Rogan's doing now is he's kind of, in my opinion, he's leading the charge. He's leading the way.
Yeah.
And he's showing people, a different form of entertainment, because he's not just, even though he's a stand-up comedian, his show is not like funny. It can be at times because he's hilarious. He's got an amazing sense of humor. But the other day they had a guy on there who's talking about cleaning up the ocean, ridding it of plastics and stuff like that. So it's interesting what he's doing, and then he'll have somebody on there talking about flat Earth or space or or whatever the hell's going on.
Yeah, I can't remember. Well, do you remember when we were in Texas with Kyle Kingsbury, and he was like, "You guys got to listen to this episode about mushrooms and fungus and stuff."
Yeah.
It was so interesting, like everything that guy was saying, and he was like, "You're the most requested guest I've ever had on." I'm like, that's fucking crazy. But yeah, he goes all over the place. He'll have an MMA fighter. He'll have some conspiracy theorists, weirdo or whatever.
When I went to listen to Joe Rogan do stand up, he talked about like psychedelic drugs a lot, and I was like super interested. Not that I've ever messed with any of them, but I was just like, I don't know anything about this world. And he was saying like what each thing did and everything, and I was like, what the hell's going on? What is he even talking about?
We just got to get a shaman ready, and we'll have just a crazy ayahuasca trip here at the gym.
Oh my God, I guess so. His gym was super cool, and we're continuing to ramp up what we have here. We got some bodybuilding stuff coming in. Got some leg presses, preacher curl, Smokey.
Just one preacher curl machine?
Smokey's going to be preaching on that preacher curl all day long.
He's just going to move his desk to the preacher curl machine.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I'm going to do the same. I need to have bigger biceps.
Nice.
And we have a shoulder press. We got a bench press, leg extension, leg curl. We got 2 leg curls, actually. We have a Atlantis leg curl, which in my opinion is one of the better leg curls I ever used. It's a standing, one leg at a time type deal. And that one's a really good piece. Anyways, just excited to get that stuff in here to get a sick pump. It's from a company called, the one hamstring curl is from Atlantis, but the rest of the stuff is from a company called Prime. And we got to use that stuff when we were in Florida. Remember we were on that leg press, Andrew?
The one at ASPI?
Yeah, ASPI. And we could switch the weights around and everything. We got that sick leg pump going.
But it was the shoulder press is the one that got me.
Oh, I think crushing is bad.
Because you can alter the weights to be harder in the beginning, middle, or at the end, and you're thinking like, okay, fuck, okay, the middle was way too hard. Like I can't wait to get momentum to push at the top.
Yeah.
And you get there to the top, and you're like, oh wait, this sucks equally as bad as the previous one.
Yeah, it was bad. And then I used I used the preacher curl when I was there and got a pump within, I don't know, like 4 minutes, with no warm up or anything. So it's kind of nice because dumbbells and barbells and stuff, it's kind of hard to get warm. It's hard to it's hard to always get a pump. You have to be in a certain like mood to just crush the day, to be able to get a pump from some of those other movements sometimes. And sometimes your nutrition has to be on point too. But with some of these machines where you get the isolation work in there, I think it ends up being a lot easier. And that's what they're made for. It's a specific spot in the gym to go and do a very specific thing. And I've mentioned this before, but you tell people, hey, yeah, you can stretch anywhere you want in the gym. You can, and if there's nowhere to stretch, then nobody stretches, but our monolifts are where people squat. Our deadlift platforms, even though you can deadlift wherever you want, that's where people deadlift. And our bench presses are where people bench. It's like you need a designated area for some reason.
Yeah, well, like yesterday, the vibe was pretty cool. Everyone was deadlifting. I mean, you had the biggest gym you've ever had, and everyone's in one corner.
Yeah, it's and also it's like extremely inconvenient to lift together because you got to keep pulling the weights off. But there is something about being together. I've always said that, and that's why we don't allow headphones in the gym. Because if you want to have headphones on and you want to be in your own little spot, then you should either A, come in on off hours, or B, you should go to a different gym, because this gym is about being part of a team and being there for each other. And I get requests all the time. People ask, how do I get to how do I do this? How do I do that? And the gym is free, and it's wide open on Saturdays and Sundays. We do request that you take the time to hit us up on Instagram, which is just at Super Training Gym. That way we can accommodate however many people are going to show up on that particular day. And we're just aware. And then people, our staff can make you aware of whether I'm around or not. But the whole point of all this is that, powerlifting's difficult. It hurts, and it's tough to do it on your own. And there's like scientific evidence that points to when you have people cheering for you and you got people getting excited for you, that it then excites you more and helps you to work harder. So why not take advantage of that momentum and want to take advantage of what's going on? There's going to be days where you go to do a set of deadlifts and somebody says, yeah, we're doing sets of 8 today. And you're like, holy, like, I just don't want to do that. That's the last thing I want to do. But if the whole group is doing it, that's what they say in the military. That's why they say they fight rather than run, is because the guy next to him is doing the same thing. And obviously what we do here at Super Training is to a much lesser extent than what our men and women are doing, fighting for the country and stuff like that. But it just kind of drives that point home, that it's just easier when you do it together. It also just makes the logistics of everything easier. Let's say like we're going from one machine to the next, or one piece to the next. If we're going from doing bench press to doing overhead press like we did the other day, well, there's some like breaking down of other equipment, and there's some moving around of different things. And I remember for years lifting by myself. BFT was not a very good lifting partner back in the day. And I often found myself lifting by myself at Gold's Gym some 20 years ago in Los Angeles, California. My brother was a bullshit lifting partner too, and Mike O'Hearn was too busy fixing his hair and bouncing his pecs to be around. So I was often by myself, and it sucked to set stuff up. To try to just even set up a rack, after you're waiting, 10 minutes for a rack, it's just kind of a pain in the ass. And that's not too bad, because you're like, okay, well, that's my first movement. But then you go to another movement and you got to like reset everything and keep doing that. When you train as a group and you train as a team, it's not really a problem, because someone's like, oh, I'll grab that bench. And then while you're tinkering with the rack or whatever it is you're doing, it's just any barrier of the larger the barrier of entry into anything, the harder it's going to be for us to get momentum to even get started in the first place.
Right.
when you think about like from a business perspective, the easier that you can make things and the more convenient that you can make things, the more money that you're going to make. You look at MySpace came along, years ago, and there was probably other social media platforms before MySpace came along, but they made it easier for people to have a profile. They made it easier for people to Facebook, kind of similar. And then Instagram came along, and Instagram was probably the easiest form. They weren't the first. You don't always have to be the first, but you have to be good and you have to be better. So those are all things to try to figure out. And when you think about something like YouTube, I can send my mom and dad a YouTube clip. They can click a button and they can watch it.
Mm-hmm.
They don't need to subscribe. They don't need to give out their email address and their zip code. They don't need to. There's no area. There's no level. There's no hurdle for them to jump over in order to get involved in it. And so that's what we try to think about here at the gym, and that's what I try to think about here as a business is how do I get more people to train? And I think about what are the barriers of entry into training. I don't know how many people I can actually get excited to just flat out go from their couch to powerlifting. That's a tougher message, and I need a larger platform for that. I would need to be probably on TV for that one, for that one to really strike home. But I think what I can do is I can make people feel more comfortable while they're training, and that's what the slingshot's for. That's what the knee sleeves are for. And that's what the wrist wraps are for, because I've been training for a long time, and I've had every nagging injury that you can think of, and I've tried just about every training program that you can think of. And it's hard, to do this stuff day in and day out. This lifting career of mine started, almost 30 years ago. Yeah, almost fucking 30 years ago. And it's not easy, coming in and day out and getting these things done. And so for me, the knee sleeves, the elbow sleeves, all the different stuff just makes it easier. Training with the team, having Smokey, yell at me to jump in with the group and just stick it out.
Bicep curls.
Do more bicep curls, yeah.
I remember like a while back when we were filming Hustlemania, you were talking to somebody about making like your own app.
Mm-hmm.
Like, whatever happened with that one? If
Yeah.
You don't mind me asking.
Yeah. No, I mean, shit goes sideways. So the guy that we had, doing our website, we had to detach ourselves from him because we were having a lot of website problems, and he was going to be the guy that was going to do the app. Mm-hmm. And so that fell to the wayside. But a lot of things, what I've learned in business is that, it's okay for ideas to take a while. It's okay for things to take time. The slingshot push-up, and even the slingshot itself was like 3 or 4 years in the making. The slingshot push-up was like 2 years in the making. Knee sleeves were something I visited once, and then I stopped, and then I restarted again and came back to them. And then as far as like the app goes, it's something I probably do need to revisit because there's a lot of things that can be done with an app, especially when it comes to the nutrition side of things. When it comes to the book, The War on Carbs, I think it could really help people stay on track. Maybe it could have different information about restaurants they can go to, how they can order from certain restaurants and things like that.
That'd be cool. Again, lowering the barrier of entry, even for diet.
Yeah, it doesn't have not everything always has to be so difficult and so hard all the time. And I think that's we do that for ourselves. We do that all day for ourselves, and we're the ones that as an individual, you make up things in your head about why something's so hard, or why you're not going to do something, or why you're going to procrastinate or push something off. What I find really interesting is that so many things and so many people are motivated by like one singular thing, and it's a lot of times it's money. And it's an interesting thing because there's some people that are just motivated because they maybe have like a creative side or an artistic side, and they can't figure out how to make ends meet to save their lives. But then they have these cool creative ideas, but then are not sure like how to monetize them, how to turn them into anything.
Yeah.
They have zero organization. And then you got other people most people that are really organized, will always do pretty well with making money because they can figure out how to get tasks done because they can keep track of what needs to happen.
Yeah. They can get from A to B.
They can figure out how to get from A to B, and I just find it all very interesting. Not that one way is wrong or right. I mean, they're different tasks, and I think for myself in trying to think of new products and think of some of the things that we're developing here at Super Training. What I realized, a couple days ago, I got thinking about a company like Nike. And I was just like, man, what did Nike do? And you think about a company like Nike, like, man, Nike's so cool. They had Jordan, they had Bo Jackson, and they had everybody, in between,
Mm-hmm.
and they just do stuff on a higher level than everybody, and they still do, and they've been doing it forever. And not only do they compete with the other sporting brands, but they compete with like Versace and stuff. I mean, Nike is just it's out of this world what they've done. But they sold people on like a concept, they've sold people on, they literally sold people air. When you kind of think about it and you break it down into its smallest part,
Mm-hmm.
they sold people on thinking that air inside of a shoe was somehow a great thing. And not only did they convince the world that that was cool, and through athletes like Michael Jordan and Bo Jackson, but they made Reebok kind of copy what they were doing in having like a pump shoe.
Yeah.
Oh, we're going to people think air is cool. Well, watch this. we're going to blow up a shoe, with tons of air everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You never go full air. That's when they made a mistake. Was Griffey's shoes Nike also?
I'm not sure.
I'll have to look that up.
I don't know. Ken Griffey Jr.?
Yeah. Because I just know, in school, like
I think so.
You weren't shit unless you had Nikes.
No, yeah, you have to have the. I mean, they do a great job of making their shoes look aesthetic, right? They've done a good job, branding that swoosh. But I find that company to be not only creative, but obviously they're organized. They have their shit together in many different ways,
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And remember they had oh yeah, that's a cool that's a crazy design. That's a crazy design.
Nike Air Griffey. Yeah.
That's a wild looking shoe.
$150.
Man, you know what? I'm so lost when it comes to shoes now because my feet have gotten so fat. I keep losing weight, but my feet keep getting fatter and flatter. I don't know what happened.
Yeah.
I think like the arches fell or something. I don't know. My golden arches.
Yeah, I think I was telling you, I don't think it was on the podcast, but like when we fly now, I have to take my shoes off.
See, here's what's funny about that. If I take my shoes off on the plane, I can't get them back on.
I do worry about that though.
So they make so you've seen those finger toes or whatever, right? Like the
Vibram 5 fingers.
Yeah, the weird shoes, right?
Yeah.
I've had a lot of people swear by them. People say, "Man, it's great because it doesn't have to really like fit your foot the way a normal shoe does."
No.
Seems impossible to get on, and they look really weird,
They're impossible to get on. I tried them once, and I kept getting like a couple toes stuck in one.
You got to keep those toenails well groomed too if you're gonna wear stuff like that.
I'm totally fucked in that department.
Yeah, same with me. My toenails will just rip right through.
I got some talons down there.
Yeah. Sometimes I do too, just because I'm too fat and too lazy to get down there and figure it out. But I lost all this weight, and my feet are still, fat as hell. They make so much like the Vibram shoes, they make like a glove for your toes. Weird. See if you can Google that and try to find it because it's supposed to correct your toes. And I guess what people are saying is like you have no idea how screwed up your toes are from being in your shoes for so long. Until you wear this product. It's a corrective product to like get your toes headed in the right direction.
It's like a therapeutic thing.
But you think about it, like you look at your toes, they're like all screwed up. They're all like those are like socks. I think.
Okay.
Let me see. I had it on my phone the other day. I'll look for it for a second. But it was just a lot of people were commenting and they were like, "Man, my feet. I never knew my toes were so messed up." I don't know if it's like advertising hype or whatever.
Is it like a sock?
No, it's like a little bit of a. Where did it go?
Grip glove.
I got another good one to drop on you guys.
Uh-oh.
A couple things. Yeah, a couple things going on. Oh, here it is. It's how's this thing called? YB practices everything. I don't know. What the hell's this thing called? My brother sent it to me. It's supposed to restructure your toes. And my brother's like, I wonder what would happen if you wore it for squats. I was like, my whole leg would probably explode. Yeah. I don't know. It just says YB on it. I don't know what that means. Anyway, it's a crazy looking thing. I'll send you this.
Send me the link. And
I'll send you
it.
I'll send you the picture, and then
Or
you
that
can
works.
at least I'll just send it to your phone or whatever. So I heard this other thing too. I posted this up on Twitter. This is for Smokey. Mm-hmm. They make a lollipop, and it's not really a lollipop, but they call it a lollipop. They call it electronic lollipop. You put it in your mouth, and it gives you sensations and on your taste buds to help with craving. So if you crave like pizza, it can give you like a pizza sensation. If you crave ice cream, it can give you like an ice cream sensation. Oh, there we go. Now we're starting to get into some yoga toes. Oh man, that's amazing. Let me look. I gotta look up.
Stretching out those poor little toes.
Yeah. Oh. Yeah. It's interesting because you can totally do that with your hand, but no possible way could you do that with your feet, right? And you probably should be able to. I remember my kids used to do that when they were babies. They'd like stretch, and their little toes would stretch out. It almost looks like that person has like 8 toes. It's disgusting. We got to get some of those. That could be a present for everybody in the gym. Maybe you could help Jessica. I'm probably not supposed to talk about that on the air.
Real quick, Jake K. I don't know if maybe he just kidding. He said he was less than a year ago. He was 404 pounds at 5'11", joined the war on carbs, and now he's 330.
And 6'3".
He's still growing.
Hey man, congratulations. That's amazing.
Awesome.
That's crazy progress.
Okay, so this is actually a really good question. So he says he feels like he's plateauing now, because he did this without actually like going to the gym or anything, just eating right. So should he? What should he? Basically, he's wondering what he should get into next. Should it be more powerlifting, hypertrophy, or what do you think?
Just movement, man. Just moving around. You know, if you haven't been exercising, just get to a gym, and you know, there's a lot of like programs you can try to follow. You can get a hold of like Jim Wendler's 531 if you wanted to engage in some powerlifting. But really, you know, 20, 30 minutes of lifting some weights and 20, 30 minutes of just moving, doing some cardiovascular training of some sort. That'll keep your progress flying. If you really hate cardio type stuff, then you could stick a little bit more to the weights. But I think any lifting that you insert at this moment, I think will be a huge bonus. How much weight did you say he lost? Like 100 pounds, right?
Yeah, so he went from 4, so he lost 70 pounds, basically. But I think it was Lane Norton.
Yeah.
Hopefully I'm not fucking anything up, but especially for the documentary or the nutrition movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he was saying like somebody who's, you know, considered obese or whatever, if they lose even just 50 pounds,
yeah,
they're now just as healthy as anybody who's not. You know, something crazy like that.
Yeah. So what he said was, you see like most of your results in the first 10% of body weight that you lose. So if you weighed 400 pounds and you lost 40 pounds, that's where you're going to see most of the health benefits.
Yeah.
Which is really interesting. You know, who knows how they find these things all the time?
Mm-hmm.
But I always say there's probably some truths to most of the studies that we see. You know.
Yeah. So for someone like Jake, he's winning.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, he's crushing it, man. That's huge progress, and you know, you're always gonna have a plateau. That happens with everything, and it's not like you can just work harder and have the plateau disappear. Lifting doesn't work that way either. You can't like just, you know, you can't lift weights that you're not ready for. That's what I've always liked so much about powerlifting is the patience and the persistence that it takes. And even when it comes to weight loss, it can be a tricky thing. I mean, you can sit there and go, yeah, I'm kind of cheating on my diet. I'm not like 100% in. But even when you go 100% in, it's like, day 1, day 2, day 3, you're like, oh man, I'm okay, making pretty good progress. Day 4 comes and you gain 2 pounds and you're like, what the hell happened? Which was just doing so good. And I did everything right. I didn't eat anything off the diet. I didn't drink anything off the diet. And I just all of a sudden gained 2 pounds. Well, that's just what happens. It doesn't matter what diet you're following. There's going to be like a lot of ups and downs. And you also probably, for this guy, he should probably not be on a strict diet all the time. You probably have some periods of time where you mess around with some fasting, and you should have some periods of time where you don't. Have some periods of time where you make sure that you not only have your breakfast, but maybe wake up earlier than normal and make sure you get more calories and more nutrition. You got to kind of switch things up. The body is really smart. Your liver will kind of be like, hey, your liver will get grumpy, especially on a keto diet, and you'll produce less thyroid hormone. Thyroid hormone can help you lose weight, and so there's probably like little things that he can. For now, I think just lifting is the answer. But he may also want to just switch things up a tiny bit, which is a very dangerous recipe for somebody who's been 400 pounds, because he's got to be careful that he doesn't slip down that rabbit hole and end up just crushing pizza and cookie dough and all the things that I love.
Yeah. And I mean, another wealth of knowledge was today's podcast that went up on iTunes. With Stan Efforting.
Oh, who's that?
Dude, it was fucking crazy. Like, we're
getting... Rhino?
Yeah.
That guy doesn't know shit. That guy's so fat.
Dude.
You ever notice that?
Yeah.
Fuck, that guy's fat. 50 years old, and he couldn't be any fatter.
He's so smart, though.
He is. He's brilliant. And he's freaking jacked. I hate him.
Yeah, or at least he pretends to be smart, and he just throws out these big words that more than half the time I don't know what he's talking about.
I think he has photographic memory.
Oh yeah,
I think he does, because he remembers everything that he reads.
Yeah, you were saying Boar too, your brother.
Yeah, and my brother is really weird though, because there's other things where he's just like in outer space for. You don't know what the hell's going on with that guy.
Yeah, we got a question about someone doing their first meet coming up on Tuesday.
Smokey has a pornographic memory.
You do. You can recall any.
Yes.
Any scene.
Fill in the blank.
What should this guy's diet be like? Or I think it's a guy. Sorry.
Yeah. Going into your first powerlifting meet, just the main thing is, if the powerlifting meet is close, is not to change anything. That's the main thing, is not to change anything too drastically. I would also say, losing weight going into a powerlifting meet is the worst way to perform well, and gaining weight is probably a better way. But I also would just advise that you don't change too much. I mean, maybe you want to try to eat a little bit more going into the competition, because if you weigh 2-3 pounds more, you might be a little stronger. You'll find that if you lose 5 pounds, pull-ups are that much easier. It's the same thing, same principle here. People that are cyclists, one of the main things going into some of those long-ass races that they do is their body weight. Think about like the Tour de France. I don't even know how long it goes for. It goes on for days and days and days, right? Think about if you weigh 3 more pounds, you're lugging that body weight around the entire time. So those guys, they specifically will go into competition kind of frail. And that's why when they fall, they're done.
Yeah,
because
23 days.
Yeah. Ooh. So it goes on for several weeks, basically a whole month.
2,200 miles.
They have to make sure that their body can still function and everything. But for a powerlifting meet, man, just, I would eat up, but just really, be careful of that you're not taking any food that's going to upset your stomach. It's going to throw you off. And then the other thing on that too would be the day of the competition. You want to make sure that you're eating foods that are going to digest easily and things you're used to. You don't want to throw in out of nowhere something you're not used to and be like, oh my God, I'm going to shit myself on a deadlift.
Yeah. Any advice for selecting weight, like his openers and stuff?
Yeah. The first attempt should be something you can do for 3 reps comfortably. Second attempt should be something that you can do for a double pretty comfortably. And a third attempt, you should go for it if you got to that point. If you miss anything because of any commands or anything happens, take the same weight again. Don't go up in weight. I've seen a lot of lifters do that. They're like, screw it, I can do it. I'll just go up and weight, and they add weight, and sure enough, they miss it. And it just really throws off the whole entire thing. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make as many lifts as you can. That's the only way you're going to have fun. The only way you're going to have fun is to make a lot of lifts. If it's your first meet, there's no such thing as PRs, because they're all going to be PRs. And so whatever you end up with is what you end up with. And all you have previously to that is gym lifts, which every other bro in the world has already.
Were you nervous going into your meets?
Yeah, you know what? I'd get pretty nervous in the warm-up room. You know, when you're in the warm-up room and everyone's like fighting to, sometimes like almost literally fighting. Everyone's kind of fighting for position to get their warm-ups in, and especially like geared powerlifting, it just takes so long sometimes to warm up. And so yeah, I'd get pretty nervous at those times, and then during the actual meet, now it's fine. You know, once the meet started, I just didn't have time. I didn't have any time to be nervous. You know, handling those big. I would be nervous for other lifters when I'd watch other lifters go. I'd be like, "Oh my god, I can't believe this guy's lifting so much weight. This guy's crazy. He's going to bench 700 pounds. This is nuts." When I would go, it was almost like a out of body experience in some weird way.
That's cool. This is a kind of interesting question from Rob, because I'm always like confused as shit when I see you guys going to town on the smelling salts. It sounds like he's never tried it before, but is that something that you would or I don't know, give him some advice on going from not using them to using them for a meet?
Yeah, again, I wouldn't introduce anything new. I think it's kind of a mistake.
Yeah.
I'd also be careful with your caffeine on that day, because people tend to they'll load up on it in the morning. You know, because they have a powerlifting meet and they're excited, so they'll take pre-workout and stuff like that. I don't think you should do anything like that. If you want to use anything like that, I would do it later on in the competition. I think for your squats and everything, you're going to be plenty hyped up. You'll be plenty excited. Just make sure you get a good warm up in, and then if you need it for bench or deadlift, then use it. But I've gone through thousands of milligrams of caffeine in powerlifting meets before, and got to the deadlift, and 135 feels like 600 pounds. Ugh. And it's got that hollow feeling where you're extremely tired, but you're also a little like antsy, and you have like anxiety because you've had so much caffeine in your system. It's just not working. So yeah. I'd be really cautious of that.
Gotcha. Sean's wondering if the 600-pound bench is still in the cards, or is that off the cards now?
Hey man, you never say never. You know, who the hell knows?
Yeah. Because I know you've been just focusing on just being healthy.
Yeah.
And that was one of the things that kind of...
Yeah, maybe I'll make everybody wait till I'm 45 or 50. I don't know. Main thing for now is to continue to try to get my blood work better, and it's been pretty good. There's been a couple things that I'm not that happy with, so I'm trying to make those things better. And I still want to get leaner, but I'm trying to just take my time with it since I've already lost so much weight. Try not to really like dive down too hard, with anything. So probably within the next 2 weeks or so, I'll probably start actually like really like cutting and get a little more serious about it, because I'm going out to First Form. They have their Summer Smash, I think it's called.
Oh, okay.
They got that big event going on, and I'm going to be out there, and I'm going to have to be jacked and tan for that.
Right.
Got a big old announcement that I'm going to make out there, which I'm really pumped about. Hey, back to this lollipop.
Yeah.
So this is like a scientific lollipop. It's electronic, and it's they've been studying it in Singapore. It's developed by engineers, and it's a digital lollipop. So yeah, it can help curb cravings by giving your taste buds like certain sensations. That is just crazy. So it can give you like salty, give you sweet, give you sour, give you bitter, whatever the hell you're looking for. And I posted that up on Facebook, on Twitter, and then this guy wrote in, and he seemed to have a lot of insight on it. And he wrote to me, and he said, "I got a meat lollipop that will end all your cravings." I appreciate that, Dread. And then his emojis were like a thing of meat, and then a thing of steak, and then a thing of bacon, and then the American flag. Oh, are you finding it?
So this is, I guess, the lollipop in development, and they're saying that like yeah, it can like simulate taste or some shit like that.
Hey man, anytime we start making stuff like this, everything always turns into sex. So I wonder if they have a thing that they can simulate some hey now-ness on this thing, right? Huh?
It does drive whatever industry, you know.
Yeah, they're gonna be like, hey, I want to taste some pussy, and be like, wait, what? Well, what kind do you want? You know, and you just push a button, and there you go.
Oh, like right on cue. So on the screen right there, it shows spicy, sour, lemon,
minty.
Gross.
I don't like mint. I'm not a mint person. Are you a mint person? You like mint?
What about like gum or fresh breath or whatever?
No, I always like to have bad breath. I like to blow everyone's nostrils up with my bad breath. No, even like certain gums, like I don't like spearmint. I don't like spearmint.
Oh, that's weird.
Yeah, I can't fuck with that. I kind of hate that.
Well, mint chocolate chip ice cream.
I can't do it.
Well, it's funny because
I feel like I just brushed my teeth and I bit into a chocolate bar. It tastes awful to me.
What? So yesterday I was talking to Jessica and Marcus, or maybe it was a couple days ago. Maybe it was when we had In-N-Out.
Marcus knows about food.
Yeah, and
hey now.
So I was eating fries, and you're the only one that's eating fries. Everyone else has got Flying Dutchman.
It was your birthday.
Yeah. So that's what I said. I was like, well, it's my birthday. Jessica talked me into it, but I was like, I'd rather be eating this than like a cupcake. And Marcus was like, really? Like a cupcake that you're not putting it up against anything good? And I'm like, well, name anything, any kind of sweet, and I'd probably pick this. And so they're naming off like, he
was kind of saying a cupcake's not that good.
Yeah. So
I'd agree. Yeah, I don't like cake anyway. Cupcake is like a cake.
But they were looking at me like
ice cream cake or go home.
So they're like ice cream cake, and I'm like, well, you put two things that I don't necessarily love together, it doesn't make them any better. Like now I'm just having cold teeth while I try to bite into ice cream or bite into cake, and they were looking at me like I was a fucking weirdo. I was like, dude, I'm not into sweets.
Yeah, some people like crunchy, salty stuff.
That's it right there.
Some people just absolutely love potato chips or French fries and some of that stuff. I've always kind of thought that stuff's a waste of time. I'd always just be like, I don't understand.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I do like pizza a lot. I mean, pizza's not really crunchy, but it's more salty.
Yeah, it's pizza and fries for me, and my mom's crepes.
There's a big difference, there's a big difference with pizza though, like pancakes are kind of pancakes, and there's degrees of it all, and there's, waffles and French toast, and they're kind of all similar. Like whether you go to Black Bear Diner or Denny's or whatever, they all taste amazing. They're all really good. But when it comes to, like French fries and pizza, I mean, where you get them from, like, really is a big deal. Yeah. And then French fries are just done. Like, if they're cold at all, like,
game over.
Yeah, you're kind of screwed. Nachos are like that. Nachos always seem like such a great idea, and they are amazing. It's like one of the better foods on the planet.
It's a lot of work. I'd rather just have tacos.
It's a lot of work, and then, it gets all over your hands, and then you smell like that the whole day. But then it also just gets soggy. And you're like, I really missed out. You're like, fuck.
Yeah. Kyle Rice has been doing the carnivore diet. He's trying to lose weight, but he's wondering if condiments are like kind of like a waste, like to do it all together. Should he lose the condiments like ketchup, mustard, and hot sauce, or leave them in there?
I think sometimes some of those things boil down to, how long have you been dieting for? If you're like a veteran dieter and you've been messing with diets for a while and you want to try to get the most out of it, then I'd say, ditch everything. Go in hardcore and do the carnivore diet and see how it works. Try 3, 4, 5 days of just eating pretty much meat, kick out the vegetables, kick out the condiments, and, salt, pepper, is, you can have, with, you can have some butter. That could be your condiment is butter.
Yeah.
And,
salt.
maybe some like eggs or something like that. But, I think that it depends. If you haven't really dieted before, then I think you should be a little bit more cautious, and I think you should be a little bit more careful, and just realize that it's a huge step beyond wherever you were before. We have a hard time, keeping that in our fat heads. That if you are deadlifting 225, maybe you don't want to deadlift 225. Maybe you want to deadlift 250, but you're not there yet. So you have to continue with that particular weight, and wherever you're at is where you're at, and you have to understand that it's still better than you did before. And I think that we have a tendency to kind of beat ourselves up and be like, oh man, I want to, you just want to be better.
Yeah.
You always want to be better off than where you were before.
I think his problem is, and I'm not trying to be too offensive, but he has carbs in his name. His name's Kyle Rice.
Oh man.
So
maybe he's trying to go vertical.
Yeah, so that's what I was gonna say. So if he does something like the vertical diet, he might have a little bit more success that way.
We got my boy Eddie Cohn coming in this week.
Oh shit.
That's gonna be awesome. We got Coach House on the roster as well. We're gonna do 2 podcasts, probably in the same day, probably both on Friday. Coach House is the Carolina Panthers strength conditioning coach, and has been a good friend of mine for a long time. He is probably doesn't want me talking about this, but he's one of the highest paid strength coaches in the world, because he's been a strength coach for a really long ass time. He's coached at ASU. He's coached a bunch of different colleges, and he basically coached his way. It's actually a really cool story. Hopefully we can get him to tell it on the podcast. Coached his way around the United States, working his way back to where his wife wanted to live, which was where they live now in North Carolina. But it took him like a decade to do that, and she's, they've been together for a long time, but she stayed by his side the whole time, and he kept saying, babe, I promise you, a couple of years, like we'll keep, and he started out more on the West Coast and just kept inching his way. He's like, see, I told you we're getting closer.
Yeah.
And I think it's a cool story because, I think sometimes we look at people and we think that they're doing it on their own, and they're not. We need help, we need support, and so it's cool that he's doing that. He's just a consumer of the iron game, man. That guy, you're not going to find a coach that knows more than him. He knows a lot. He's also super fired up. Kind of has that old school, like, I'm going to pull my shorts up a little too high coaching thing going on.
Hork him.
Yeah, he's going to hork him up. Yeah, you used my word,
Yeah.
I taught you. Yeah, he's going to hork him way up there. He's got him like way up over the belly button, and he's in his 50s, and he's still deadlifting over 500 pounds, and I'm super pumped to have him on the podcast. And obviously, what the hell, Ed Cohn, like, what can I say about that guy? But we got Ed Cohn and Jesse Burdick and Sten Efferding all here for the seminar, the free seminar. That's April 22nd. Starts at 10 a.m. I think doors are going to open at like 9. I think we're going to try to shut this thing down at around 2, but the seminar actually ends at like 1, just so we can get everybody off to where they need to be. Ed Cohn has to head back to Chicago. His mama isn't doing so well, so he's got to get back to her to attend to that, and really appreciate him coming out, especially at a time like this where his mom's not doing so well, but he's been a good friend for a long time as well. And I'll explain the story to you a little bit. If I can get the chronological order correct. I probably can't, because I ain't that smart, but basically what happened was Stan, came to Super Training Gym years ago. I saw him doing some lifts on YouTube. He did a 2050 total, and I think it was on powerliftingwatch.com at the time. I was like, oh my God, who is this guy? And with the bald head and just his look and the way that he kept screaming, he wasn't screaming anything that I could recognize as words. So I was like, is this guy German? What's the deal with this guy? And the name Efferding, I didn't know what was going on. I thought he was foreign, whatever the case was. And I was like, well, shit, I'll try to hit him up. And I browsed around, and I couldn't really find any information on him. And I did find out that he was a bodybuilder. And I was like, oh, he's a bodybuilder, but he just came into powerlifting out of nowhere and totaled 2050, and he's not wearing any powerlifting gear. And at this time, there was no raw powerlifting at the time. I repeat, there was no raw powerlifting at the time. Super Training Gym and Stan Efferding are largely responsible for the raw powerlifting movement, period. And probably Stan more so than anything. But when we came together, it ended up being a good marriage that ended up showing everybody that you don't have to be fat to be a powerlifter. But Stan came in and he threw some money on the table and said, I want you to train me." And I was pretty broke at the time, so not only broke but fat. And so we started working together, and I threw everything at him that I possibly could. I quickly learned that with an athlete like Stan, it's not a great idea to make too many changes, but we made some small tweaks, and those things ended up having huge reward. I learned a lot from him, from coaching him. I learned a ton of different things. Probably the first thing that I learned was when he went to squat, he had a little bit unusual squat style where he would descend really, really slow. And so on day one, I was like, well, down fast, up fast. That's what we kind of learned. We can take advantage of our stretch reflex. And if we go down fast, up fast, that's what they teach you with Olympic lifting. The faster that you can go down, the faster you can pop right back up, right? Mm-hmm. Well, Stan, started his powerlifting career at an older age. And I think at the time he was mid-40s when he was hitting some of these lifts. And so Stan was moving super slow on the descent, probably 6, 7, 8 seconds on the lowering portion of the lift, which is really, really rare for a raw powerlifter. You see that quite a bit in geared powerlifting, but it's very rare in raw powerlifting. So I tried to have him speed up, and he quickly kind of lost his balance, even with just like 3 plates, and it just didn't look right. And so, I watched him go again, and I'm just sitting there scratching my head, and I can't figure it out. I'm like, that doesn't look right. I'm like, okay, go back to the way you were squatting before. And so he did, and he worked up to some weight. He worked up to about 5 plates and moved it around for a couple reps. He said his knees were bothering him a little bit. And I was like, well, your stance is pretty close. Why don't we open that stance up a little bit? I mean, a lot of people have had a lot of success with squatting real wide because when you squat wide, it creates almost like an internal suit, and it locks up your hips, and therefore it's hard to get below parallel. And so that's why some people choose not to squat that way, because it is a lot on your hips, kind of hurts in some way. But when you learn to squat that way, it can have a great impact, because it can be a really good stopping point for your squat, because the stance is wider and you get more tension from the hips. And years ago in powerlifting, before they had powerlifting gear, that's the way a lot of lifters squatted. They just squatted as wide as they could with their feet pointing straight forward. So we took Stan's stance out, and he went to do another set with 500, and he was just flying with it. I mean, the weight was just popping off his back, and I was like, "Holy shit!" I was like, "This is a little bit different type of person, And on that particular day, I think we had him work up to about 6 plates and called it a day. But then after that, I was kind of looking at his head positioning. He kind of kept looking down. He was looking almost straight down at the ground, and I've been powerlifting for a long time, and I've been trying to, figure out some of these things with my shitty squat. I kept rounding over in my squat. And I was like, what is wrong with my squat? And I kept trying to arch up, and I kept trying to keep my chin up and my head up and all these different things, and nothing was ever working. And when Stan came in was around the time I met Kelly Starrett. So all these things were kind of coming together. So I had Stan pick his chin up on his squats. And again, he lost his balance. Even with the lighter weight, went back down to about 3 plates, and it just didn't look right. And I was like, man, that looked like shit. And he's like, Biggs, if my head's not down, I lose my balance. He's like, that's why I like my head down. And I was like, all right, well, let me see you go, with the head down again. So he went with the head down, and boom, he just knocks the weight, 15 feet in the air pretty much off his back, because he's just so damn strong. I was like, all right, well, it looks like, your stance should be wide. It looks like you should keep your head where it is. And we made some adjustments with where he kept the bar and some things like that. But what I noticed with him, and what might be impactful for a lot of you guys listening right now, is that your head doesn't have to be up. for some of you out there, it has to, and for some of you out there, it doesn't have to. So play around with that. Play around with your stance. The current stance that you have right now might not be the stance that you're using 2 years from now. So you always want to try to check, just double check, triple check. Maybe when you're warming up, and maybe when you're even when you finish a workout, just check and see. See how the different stances feel for you, see how they impact you, and see if you're stronger with a slightly different stance. You're not really sure until you try. And so, as Stan and I were going through this process, we were trying just to learn more about powerlifting. Stan would send me, or I was trying to teach Stan more and more about powerlifting, teaching him who the players were in powerlifting, because he didn't know anybody. He didn't know any of these names or anything. Occasionally, he would send me a video and be like, "Who's this guy?" It'd be like somebody deadlifting like 860 pounds or something. And he and I got talking one day, and we got talking about Ed Coan. And we were just like, yeah, Ed Coan, just absolute beast. What's the deal with this guy? He's had all these records and stuff. And I said, actually, Ed Coan, he actually helped my brother at a powerlifting meet when my brother was a kid. He helped wrap his knees. And Stan was like, no way. And he's like, Ed Coan? I was like, no, I don't really know him. I mean, I send messages to him and stuff, but I actually never met him. And I actually used to troll on powerlifting. On Powerlifting Watch, I used to always write in, and I'd always say, like, you're not Ed Coan. Anytime anybody did anything that was remotely good in powerlifting, I'd always shit on them and say, yeah, but you're not Ed Coan. And then it'd always start like a huge thing, and people would be like, can't you just congratulate somebody? And I'm like, no, fuck you guys. You're not Ed Coan. You don't understand.
Was that under your name, or was that when you were Jackass or whatever it was? Or
Yeah,
it
was just under like a random random name,
Oh,
some offshoot of like Jackass or something like that. Anyway, so Ed Coan was somebody that we were talking about quite a bit, and Andy and I were discussing possibility of having a magazine. And I was sitting there one day thumbing through Powerlifting USA, and I was like, this magazine's shit. This thing's crap. There needs to be a magazine that focuses in on the best of the best, the cream of the crop, the best in the business. And this magazine focuses on like some 65-year-old guy that deadlifted 185. I'm like, who gives a fuck about that guy? Come on. And that's the whole premise of that magazine was like that. That's why people bought it. People bought it because they'd see their name in print in there, because they print out some of the meets, and people were like, I'm in Powerlifting USA. I was like, this is the sad side of powerlifting. This is a side of powerlifting that I don't want people to even know about. The side of powerlifting where everybody gets a trophy. It's just absolutely pathetic. So I was like, fuck this. And Andy, she was like, well, we could make our own magazine. I was like, oh, we can? She had a lot of background in magazines. She worked for a few magazine companies at the time, and we started to talk about it more and more every day. At the time, we didn't have much money. There was no slinger. There's no slinger mansion. There's no slinger mobile. There's no slinger nothing. There's no slingshot at all. And so I was like, well, what is it? What does this cost? Like, what do we got to do? And she's like, well, it won't cost too much. But anything was too much at that point. We just didn't have any dough. And I was talking to Stan about it, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to have Ed Coan on the cover, and I'm going to do this, this, and this. And Stan said, you know what? He's like, I think I can get it paid for. And so Stan worked out some deals with Flex Wheeler at the time, and Stan got advertising for Power Magazine, and I think Stan paid for like the other half of it. And the first time that all three of us were together was at the Olympia, where we had Power Magazine with the first issue of Power Magazine with Ed Coan on the front. So that was, that was many years ago. I don't even know what the hell year that was. It's probably, the slingshot is about 8 years old. And so that was probably like 9 years ago or something like that.
Give or take.
Yeah, that was probably about 9 years ago. Yeah, and Ed, and so Stan actually paid for Ed Coan to fly out to Las Vegas to be at that event, and Stan paid for a couple hoes to be in. I should probably leave that part out. And we had Flex Wheeler there, and he had his one of his cars there, and it was a good time. It was a lot of fun, and it was all three of us just trying to like. We don't know anything about like the fitness industry. That was the first trade show that I really went to in that capacity. I've been there before, just like every other jabroni with a bag to get a bunch of free shit. You know, get some free bars and build up a lot of protein farts on the day. But that was kind of how we came together, and I'm super excited about us being together for this seminar and to share some of that story with people. And we've all kind of grown together. We've evolved together. We communicate all the time still. I could communicate with Stan a little bit more just because he's closer, and he's somebody that I get a lot of information on diet and stuff like that from, and he's somebody I've consulted for a long time. But it's just going to be a lot of fun to have all those guys, all of us together. Ed, Ed's a really amazing person, and he's somebody that also took, he saw what Stan could do, and he just took Stan under his wing. And Ed does that with all kinds of people. You don't have to be the strongest person in the room to get Ed Cohn's attention. If you're somebody that's excited and passionate about anything that you're doing, Ed Cohn's going to be a fan of yours because he's just that kind of person. But yeah, he took Stan under his wing. Those two worked together on a few movements for Stan too. And it was just, we were just kind of off to the races. Stan ended up hitting a 2,300 plus pound total, breaking all-time world records. He broke every record that he wanted to break. He was somebody that mapped it out and mapped out a giant plan of what he was going to do and how he was going to do it. And he just went out there and he did it much the same way Ed Cohn did it. And when you watch some of those old videos of Ed Cohn lifting, you only see Ed Cohn be excited normally after a lift. A lot of times it's after he lifts. Ed Cohn has squatted over 1,000 pounds in competition. We're watching a video right now, and it's got all these guys have these Zubaz pants on, these MC Hammer pants, and they that are American flag print. And Eddie's squatting, tons and tons of weight. But yeah, Ed Cohn squatted over 1,000 pounds. I think he benched like 585. Ooh, that's when he took his tumble at the Mountaineer Cup. That was brutal. Not a lot of people know this about Ed Cohn. Ed Cohn was actually banned. He was like flat out banned from powerlifting, period. And we'll talk to him about that on the podcast because we talked about it. We talked about it with him a long time ago, but that was kind of many moons ago. But he was such a badass that he's pretty much banned from powerlifting, and they there was obviously other reasons on why he was banned, but he was in the drug tested federation at the time, and you can kind of read between the lines on why he was banned. But they made all kinds of rules against Ed Cohn. How low you can carry the bar on your back is an Ed Cohn rule, because the guy was changing the game. People didn't know what to do. They're like, well, he can't win every single meet every single time. And it's like, well, yes, he can, because he's that strong. There's also old video of, people would always criticize his bench. There's a video of him benching 545 for an easy double with a pretty close grip from what I remember. He also would behind the neck press 405 for reps, I believe. Should try to look that up too. I mean, he's just ridiculous. The last time he came here to the gym, it was quite some time ago. But he, you know what's going to happen when Ed Cohn comes here? The guy's going to cry when he sees what we've built up over here. It's going to be emotional for him because we've been such good friends over the years, and he knows the vision, he knows the dream, and he's very connected to it. And so I think it might be kind of emotional for him. He's gonna be super excited, but you might see some tears shed by him because he's very very emotional. But yeah, he had a really strong bench, strong upper body, and then obviously he's most well known. Here we got that's at least 315.
So this is the 405 one.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he's just that was like 3. Yeah, like that might have been 405 because it might have had a dime on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you got to keep in mind too, he doesn't weigh a lot. You know, in that video, his waist was tiny. He's probably 190 pounds. It just doesn't make any sense. Some people are just strong. You know, everybody wants to talk about steroids and stuff. And obviously, Ed did what he had to do to be the greatest powerlifter of all time. But, you know, that kind of strength is just not normal. It's, you know, highly genetic and obviously a huge, it has a lot to do with him working his ass off. And the other thing is too is 901 deadlift sumo at 220, and then also an 887-pound deadlift done conventional. The 887-pound deadlift done conventional was to break the all-time world record at the time that was held by Bill Kazmaier, who was a super heavyweight. And Ed Cohn broke the all-time world record that a super heavyweight had when he weighed 220. That kind of shit ain't ever going to happen again, I don't think. I don't think we'll see that, you know, anytime soon. Although maybe Larry Wheels could do something. He's pulling 900 pounds, benching 600 pounds. I don't know if he'll ever have the squat to be able to do what Milanichev has done.
That's crazy. So, yeah, correction, it was 400.
400 pounds? What a pussy.
Yeah, I know. He didn't add the 5. Who else? What was it? Oh, Nick Platinum checked in.
Oh, what up, Nick Platinum?
Yeah, he just said he pulled 405 the other day.
That's great.
Yeah, and then a 56-year-old working on a 405 squat. And they say he has a ways to go, though. But still, people are getting stronger all over the place.
That's awesome. Hey, guys, thanks for watching. We're going to hop on out of here. Make sure you check out the Power Project Live. We'll be live on Friday. Twice. Don't know the exact times, but we'll be live with Coach House, I think around 11 a.m. And then we'll be live with Ed Cohn probably later in the day. I think he wants to come in and work out first and then hit up a training session.
Yeah, and if you're in the area,
hit up a podcast.
This Sunday seminar here at Super Training at Slingshot HQ.
Yeah, and we're releasing some sort of shoe.
Yeah, that's right. So the Power Shoe's making a comeback, and the only way to get it is if you show up here on Sunday.
Yep, you got to show up here. And then last but not least, Free Shirt Friday. There's not that many people watching the live feed, but those of you that are watching this live feed right now, you get to hear about Free Shirt Friday, right, Smokey?
Yep.
Yep, and it's a special shirt, and I can't wait for you guys to see what it is. Strength is never a weakness. Weakness is never a strength. Bye. We need that lollipop.